I've been a labor nurse for 12 years. The newborn I just delivered has my birthmark. The baby girl came at 3:17 a.m. on a Saturday, which was typical for County General's labor and delivery ward during my night shift rotation. The mother was a young woman named Jessica Yates who'd checked in at midnight with her husband David, both nervous first-time parents who'd held hands through every contraction. I'd coached Jessica through 2 hours of active labor and caught the baby when she finally crowned, performing the routine cleaning and assessment while the new parents cried with relief. What wasn't routine was when I lifted the baby's left arm to check her reflexes and saw the distinctive port wine stain birthmark covering the inside of her forearm from wrist to elbow. The mark was shaped exactly like mine, an irregular pattern that resembled a maple leaf with 3 distinct lobes and a stem, positioned at the exact same angle and location where my birthmark had been since birth. I'd lived with that mark for 34 years and knew every contour intimately, knew how people always asked if it was a burn scar, knew the precise measurements because dermatologists had documented it multiple times throughout my life. This newborn had an identical mark within millimeters of my own placement and shape. I stood there holding this minutes-old infant and felt my hands start trembling. Port wine stains are vascular birthmarks caused by malformed capillaries under the skin, and while they're common enough that about 3 in 1,000 babies have them, the specific size, shape, location, and pattern are as unique as fingerprints. The odds of 2 people having identical marks were astronomical. The odds of me being the nurse who delivered a baby with my exact birthmark were impossible. I forced myself to focus on finishing the newborn assessment, checking heart rate and respiration, weighing and measuring, administering eye drops and vitamin K injection. My training took over and I completed every task with mechanical precision while my mind raced through explanations that made no sense. Jessica was asking if her baby was healthy, and I assured her everything was perfect, that she had a beautiful daughter weighing 7 pounds 4 ounces with excellent APGAR scores. I wrapped the baby and handed her to Jessica, watching the new mother's face light up with joy while I struggled to understand what I'd just seen. After I'd finished the delivery paperwork and gotten Jessica settled in recovery, I went to the staff bathroom and pulled up my sleeve to compare my birthmark against the photos I'd just taken of the baby's arm during documentation. Identical. The same irregular maple leaf shape with 3 distinct lobes, the same stem extending toward the wrist, the same reddish-purple coloring, the same size covering approximately 40 square centimeters. I'd photographed newborn birthmarks thousands of times in my 12 years as a labor nurse, documented every variation and type, and I knew with professional certainty that this wasn't a coincidence or normal occurrence. I needed to check the mother's medical history and find out if there was any connection I'd missed. I logged into the system and pulled up Jessica Yates's records, searching for any overlap with my own history. She was 26 years old, no previous pregnancies, no medical complications, prenatal care at Valley Women's Health Center starting 8 months ago. I'd never met her before tonight and had no connection to her family or medical providers. My supervisor, Linda Ashford, found me in the records room at 5 a.m., still searching through files, and asked if I was okay because I'd been in there for over an hour. I showed her the photos of my birthmark next to the newborn's birthmark and watched her face go from confused to shocked. Linda had been a nurse for 28 years and had seen thousands of deliveries, and she immediately understood that what I was showing her was medically impossible. She asked if I'd spoken to the parents, and I said no, that I didn't know what to say without sounding insane. Linda suggested I take the rest of the shift off and go home to process what had happened, that she'd cover my remaining patients, and we'd figure out what to do when we had clearer heads. I refused and said I needed to understand how this baby could have my birthmark, that something was wrong and I couldn't just ignore it. Linda looked at the photos again and said we should document everything and maybe call the hospital's ethics board, but she didn't know what the official protocol was for a nurse discovering a newborn with her identical birthmark. I went back to check on Jessica at 6 a.m. during my final rounds and found her nursing the baby while David slept in the chair beside the bed. Jessica smiled and thanked me for being such a calming presence during the delivery, said I'd made her feel safe during the scariest experience of her life. I asked her about her prenatal care and she said Valley Women's Health had been wonderful, that Dr. Laura Fleming had been her obstetrician throughout the pregnancy. I asked if she'd had any fertility treatments or complications getting pregnant, and Jessica said no, they'd conceived naturally on the second try. I noticed she had brochures on her bedside table from Valley Women's Health about postpartum care and infant development. I asked if she'd recommend the practice, and Jessica said absolutely, that Dr. Fleming and the fertility specialists there were amazing. That caught my attention because Jessica had just said she'd conceived naturally, so why would she mention fertility specialists? When Jessica noticed my confusion, she said, to see the full story, click the link below or go on my channel.